dbms important questions part 2 SQL. Question number 3. What are the different database languages in SQL? Or the question can be, explain about DDL, DML, DCL and TCL in SQL. SQL, as we all know, is a database language by the use of which we can perform certain operations on the existing database. So that means we can say like we can create a database, at the same time we can also perform operation over the database that is already existing. And this particular SQL uses certain commands. So what are the, how is it going to perform all the operations over the DB? So by using certain commands. So it has commands like create, drop, truncate, etc. to carry out the required task. So what we are exactly going to do is we are going to categorize all the commands of the SQL in these different categories. So what are those? Basic categorization. One is the first one DDL, the second one DML, and third one is DCL. So what is meant by DDL? The full form of DDL is data definition language. The second one DML, that is data manipulation language. Third one DCL, that is data control language. So along with this, sometimes we can also speak about the TCL, that is transaction control language. So this will speak about at the last. So first try to understand all these three in detail. So now what is meant by DDL? So this DDL actually consists of SQL commands that can be used to define the database schema. So what is meant by a database schema we have already discussed. So it's nothing but a blueprint of the database that you are planning to design. And it can be said like it simply deals with the description of the database schema and is also used to create and modify the structure of the database objects. So what are the different database objects we have? So database objects can be a database that you're going to design, or it can be the table, it can be a view, etc. So this DDL is a set of SQL commands which is used to create, modify and delete the database structures, but not the data. So be very clear. So this particular DDL only works on the database structures. So structures in the sense we already spoke about tables, views, right? So and indices as well. So this works on these database structures, but it is not going to work on the data. So what language that works on data, that we'll see later. So for this creating, modifying and deleting the database structures, we have the specific commands mentioned. So what are the commands? The first one is create. The second one is alter and third one is drop. So name itself says create is used for creating the database objects. Alter is used for making the changes over the database structures or the objects, and third one is drop. Drop is used for deleting the database structures or the objects. So let's try to see the first command, that is create. So this create command is used to create the database or its objects. So I already said the objects can be a table, it can be an index, it can be a function, or it can be a view, etc. So now let's try to see the syntax. So how the syntax goes? The syntax goes like this, that is create, to mention the name of the database object. So which object you are creating over here? Is it a database? Is it a table? Is it a view or a function, etc.? And at the end, it has to be followed by the name of the database object. So the first one you can see in the example, create database tutorials points. So this is nothing but the name of the data type that you have created. So what is the data, what is name of the data object? So what is the data object that you have created? Database. Now look into the second one. So what is that I'm creating here? Create. So I'm creating a table. So table is nothing but the data object, like we have said already. And what is the name of the data object? It is article. So let's try to understand this one in detail, and the remaining goes in the similar way. So next one is the drop command. So how is this drop going to help you? So the drop command is used to delete the objects from the database. So again, what are the objects? Views, tables. Apart from this, we also have functions, and along with this we have indices. So all this comes into the different data objects. So the drop is used to delete these data objects. It works over the data objects of the data structure. So syntax is very similar to the create one. So very similar. So you can see here drop, mention the data object type followed by the name that you are going to, that name of the data object that you want to delete. So example goes like this: mention drop, database, tutorials point, and then end the syntax. Okay. So now the main one element that we need to discuss over here is the SQL. So while writing the commands or a query, is it that we have to follow the cases? No. So SQL is something which is not case sensitive, not case sensitive. So here what you have to do is it's okay if you write in small letters or capital letters, but make sure that you keep all the commands better in a capital letter form. So it can be a good practice, but there is no rule like the SQL has to have only capital letters for the keywords. You can go on with the small letters as well, but this can be a good practice. SQL is a case, not a case sensitive language. So let's move on further. Next one is alter command. So alter command, as we have seen, is already about the modification of the data structure. So if you want to make any modification for the created one, you can use alter command and go on with the modification. So the syntax goes something like this. Again, alter, mention the name of the data object type, and then mention the name of the data object, and then mention the name of the parameters which you want to change in the data object. So hope this syntax is clear. And next one is the truncate. So before understanding the truncate, let's see an example over here. So in order to add an attribute in an article, in a relation article with the name subject whose data type is string. So how can you use your alter command? So let's try to see. So mention the command alter. I already said you have to mention the object type over here, that is table. And what is the name of the object? It is article. And what action has to be taken? So they are saying adding an attribute whose name is subject and the data type is string. So now use that command add and mention the name of the attribute that you want to put in the table, and at last end up with the data type of the attribute. So why you need to mention the data type? Because here you are restricting, or you putting a constraint for the type of the data that can be added in this particular attribute. So when I speak about subject, it has to allow only the strings or the characters, not the numbers. So that's why. Okay, so this we can discuss in detail in the coming classes. So as of now, next command is your truncate. So truncate, so this is not mentioned in the slide, but still let's try to see what is this truncate command. So truncate command is used to remove all the records at a time. So you need not go for a single attempt. You can apply this truncate and remove all the records from the table, including all the spaces allocated from the records. So at a stretch. Okay, for this we go for truncate. So next one is comment. You know what the comment going to do? Comment is used for adding the comment in the data dictionary, that is for description purpose. So next one is rename operator. So if you have given a name for any of the data object, and if you want to change the name, you can go for the rename operator. So the different commands are: first one create, next one drop, now coming to alter, then truncate, comment, rename. So these are all about your DDL commands. So next one is DML, data manipulation language. So data manipulation language, as I already said, is going to modify the data. So what modification it can do? It can either insert, it can update or delete the data. So let's directly go for the commands over here. The first command is select from where. Next one, insert into values, update set where, delete from where. So the commands of your DML language is a combination of clauses. So when I speak about select from where, it has select from where clause. Same way, insert into values. Into is one clause and values is the next clause. So let's move on further. The first one is select from where, the first command of your DML. So what is this select going to do? So this select is acting like a projection operator. That means it is used for selecting the attributes. So this was already explained in the basic schema structure topic. That is, I think, the question number 1. So you can look, so that link is provided over at the top. You can observe over there. So next one is from. So there we spoke, the from clause is used for taking an argument. So from where this particular action has to be taken. So when I say select an attribute subject, there I have to mention from where the subject has to be selected. That means it's very clear. Here I need to mention the name of the table in the from clause. So next one is where clause. Where has the speciality of taking the conditions. So where is used for taking the conditions for the filtration. So what condition? So when I say select from, then I have to apply conditions what has to be selected from where. Okay, so you can look into the example over here. Select author name. So the attribute name is author, and this I have to select from book author. The name of the book is author, or I can say the name of the table is book author. Okay, so what I have to select based on, do I have to select all the author names? No. So here I'm providing a condition in the where clause saying I want the names of the authors from the table book author whose age is greater than 50. This is how your select from where clause works. Next is, so the next one is insert into values. So insert into values are used for inserting the values inside the table. So and the syntax goes something like this, that is insert into, mention the table followed by the columns where the data has to be inserted, and give values and mention the values for the columns. Okay, so this can also be written like something like this: insert into and mention the table name followed by the values and the value. So this is a data object table by default. So here we are not going to follow different data objects. The only data object that you are going to work in DML is your table. Okay, so example says insert into tutorials. The name of the table is tutorials point, where the column names are authors, and next one is the subject, and what values are to be inserted. First one is anonymous, and then second one is computers. That means author has to carry anonymous value and subject has to carry the computer value. So if the values are interchanged, so you need to follow the sequence. One means the same value has to be inserted over here. 2 and the respective value over. If we interchange the values printed for the author and subject will also be reversed. So let's continue this topic in the next coming lecture.